This podcast is hardly focused.
The French.
This is Hardly Focused. Part of the Solid Listen Podcast Network.
Let's begin the show by starting it.
Hello, you. Welcome to Hardly Focused. We are presented by the Solid Listen Podcast Network. You can find us at hardlyfocused.com. We're on your favorite podcast app. We are on, everywhere. We're on YouTube. We're on TikTok. We're on Threads. Just search for Hardly Focused. Right off the bat, this is an important episode. We've got a lot going on here. It's going to be a really big show.
Tonight, we got a really big show.
But it's also the 15th anniversary of this podcast. We started on April 1st, 2009. And here we are 15 years later. It's now this episode will be releasing April 4th. See what I did there?
I see what you did there.
I've been prepping, I've been planning, I've been cutting audio.
You've been saving that.
Yes. By the way, my name is Jack. Nate Fillers is here.
Yeah, I'm pink. Because there's a pink light here that my fiance got me for my birthday a month ago. It's a frog with a cowboy hat. It's a really good light.
Nice.
But I just wanted to explain if anybody's watching a video. I don't know if they do the video. Is the video still a thing? Who knows? But I'm pink.
Oh yeah.
So if I sound pink, hear it. They can probably hear that I'm pink.
Yes.
I mean, some people can hear in color, so you know.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to explain that. Like, just derailing this anyway.
Well,
thank you for having me. It's great to be here. I love you both.
All right, get out.
I'm glad to have you here.
See ya.
Zach Ward as well.
Who's that?
That's you.
That one.
15 years ago, April 1st, 2009 was the first episode of this podcast back when it was called Talk Radio Meltdown. And then just by pure coincidence, because there was a period of time where episodes, like milestone episodes of the show, usually in increments of 50, would land on around the 1st of April every year. So we could celebrate, the 50th episode of the show and then the 100th. And it was always around the same time. And then partially because of show week a couple of weeks ago, and then for other reasons, now the episode number is all askew. So no longer can we time it out that way. But on April 1st, 2020, we just so happened to have recorded the 451st episode of this show, and it was the first under the current name, Hardly Focused. Mm-hmm. And that's where we are now. That was also the first episode that because of the pandemic, we had to record in separate studios, and then that's just how it's been ever since.
The what?
Pandemic.
The thing that you don't talk about.
Miss Rona.
But
something happened in 2020?
Nothing.
See,
nothing
funny.
Nothing happened.
It's funny because something happened and everybody knows about it, but I'm pretending like I don't.
It is weird though that like sometimes I think about, oh yeah, like last year, and then I'm like, wait, that was 2019.
Yeah, I get that too.
Well,
I get that too.
Just before we started recording, Nate was talking about a movie that came out in 2014 that has actress Bella Thorne in it, and here I am thinking that 2014 was just 2 years ago, 3 years ago. No, man, it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And
but while we were waiting, like I was just scrolling on Facebook, and a clip from Mostly Ghostly, Have You Met My Ghoul Friend, was just playing on my computer. So I was just watching it while we were waiting for Jack to set up this episode, and I got kind of sucked into it. It's a pretty good movie. It's got a 4.7
okay
out of 10. 30% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's pretty good.
That's a good movie.
Yep, that's Mystery Science Theater fodder right there.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool.
Now,
I think.
Go ahead, Zach. What are you thinking?
Oh, nothing.
Okay, well,
cool.
Awesome. Now, 10 years ago, we were celebrating. This is where I can show off my math skills. Now, 10 years ago,
nice.
we were celebrating the 5th anniversary of this podcast, and Nate Fillers was present for that. And that was like Nate's first appearance on the show in several years at that point. I remember that being a very big deal.
Oh, yeah. That was fun.
And on that note, this is what I kicked this episode off with before we get into things that happened this past week. Let's go back in time.
Okay.
Let's get.
Okay. All right.
Do I have the time warp? I do. Hell yeah.
That is an audio sample from 1933.
Recorded on a phonograph with a big like flower shaped speaker that came out of it.
That's what it sounded like. It was funny.
Now, here's a hot new ditty for you. Rabble rousers.
Good times.
Now, 2009, it's always an exercise in my patience and my ability to not like want to claw the skin off my bones when I go back and listen to old episodes of this show. But I figured because it's the 15th anniversary of the podcast, and really thanks to Threads, and we're at Hardly Focused on Threads, we've got new people listening to the show, which is fantastic. And also because
hell yeah,
there's a Solid Listen podcast network as well. So it's funny because there are people out there that don't believe that this show has been around for 15 years. And that's one of those things where I'm like, I don't know why I would make that up.
I mean, yeah, because that's a weird number to make up. It's like
Podcast didn't exist back then.
No, because this idea was just, let's just do radio show, but out of my basement.
Yes, exactly.
And that was literally it. And like before it was a thing that people did that. And the surprising is it's not like we were the only people doing it. Like there's a whole like internet, like echelons of people doing podcasts before it got mainstream and cool.
Yeah. So back then, at least the approach with this show is that we would stream it on, initially it was a Shoutcast server, and then we were on various internet radio stations where we were using their server to live stream, but that way it was audio only. We didn't have cameras back then.
One take also, like you just have to like hopefully nothing gets messed up and hopefully you didn't say something bad.
Yeah.
No,
Both video cameras and editing didn't exist back then.
Of course. Yeah. As you all know, video cameras weren't invented until 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now there were websites back there because I used to, way back in the days of like Red Bar Radio, Reckless Media Radio, I would watch them do their shows on Stickam, if you remember Stickam. And
I do.
I remember Stick Death.
That was
I do that as well.
Wow. Joe Cartoon. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. I do.
So there were like shows, internet radio shows, and they would use Stickam and they'd have the webcams at the time. But of course, the quality is what you would get, 240p if you were lucky. Now we would live stream the audio and then we would put it up for on-demand consumption thereafter. What is now colloquially known as a podcast. Back then, you could either play it directly from your computer, or you needed an MP3 player that you'd have to download the audio and then physically put it on the device and then listen from there. So that's what we were doing. But we were ahead of the game there. We were doing this before.
It's called podcasts.
Yeah.
Because most people had iPods.
But
that's where they would listen to these things, on iPods.
And for the
it would be a podcast.
Oh yeah. I never really stopped to think about it, but yeah.
Now, do you
You're
think
right.
do you think nowadays when people hear the word podcast, like they don't think twice about where the name came from. Whereas, in 2009, I'd be like, oh, little JP, I do a podcast. And people would be like, do I need an iPod to listen to your podcast?
Yeah.
I mean, I legitimately just had that reaction because it's like, oh, yeah. I just don't remember ever thinking of like podcasts as something specific to like Apple. I just kind of just coalesced into the idea that a podcast is an online radio show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what happens.
I'd have to describe it that way. And in fact, if you go on, I think if you go on hardlyfocused.com, because it's been a while since I've updated the about page, but I think I had to put the Merriam-Webster definition of podcast up there because for a long time, it wasn't until probably after the pandemic and it started in 2020 that you still had to explain the concept of podcasting to people. And then I think podcasting really took off in 2020 when everyone was stuck at home and couldn't do anything. And then realizing that the technology was available to do it easily. And then services like Anchor, which is now Spotify for podcasters, made it so any idiot could put their podcast up online. But back then, you had to build a studio. You had to build a studio, and you had to have the equipment, and you had to have the know-how. And well, I had some of that. I might have had the equipment.
I was just
that's the thing I appreciate about you is because a lot of these people that are just starting. No, not throwing shade to anybody out there listening, but some of my friends did their podcast on their phone. So it's just like they were in their like car and they just record, which not to like completely like make fun of or belittle because phones have pretty good microphones this time.
They do.
This time of our age.
Nowadays.
But like you've had this equipment for some time, but even though like not from the beginning, but the quality is always been improving. But some people are just like, I just want to just get out my phone and record it, which is fine. It's just really hard for me to listen to that because I like audio.
The technology has improved so much now that I've gone from having the board and separate processing units and the headphone amplifier in countless cables, and then the Rode company coming out with the Rodecaster and just condensing all of that into a single unit and then throwing in a nice soundboard on top of it.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately for you, Adobe has come out with an AI program that fixes all people's audios to sound like your audio.
Oh, wonderful.
No matter where it was recorded, like it could be recorded in a bathroom with the microphone like far away, and you could just delete all the reverb and it just sounds super close, super personal, super good. Super nice.
You know what I say to that?
I mean, yeah.
So well, I'm glad you bring that up because when I listen to old episodes of this podcast, at least for like the first year that this show was around, the audio quality was awful.
Abysmal. Yeah, it was really bad.
But for the fuck of it, I decided, because Nate and Zach here on the show with me tonight, I would look into the archives and see when you both first appeared on the current incarnation of the podcast. Now, the Ack and Jack show has existed, which is the companion piece to Hardly Focused, but Ack and Jack has existed longer than this show. That started in 2006. It stopped being a full-time thing in 2008, and it became a full-time thing in 2020. And then in the years between sporadic episodes here and there. So Nate and Zach both very heavily involved with the Ack and Jack show between 06 and 08. But I looked at the old podcast feed and the old show notes to see when the two of you respectively appeared on this show for the first time.
Wow.
And
amazing that you were able to still have that, because everything 20 or 15 years ago for me is gone.
Yeah.
I just forgot to back it up. I just, that's your computer. Your computer, how does it get a virus? I'm not to say how it got a virus, but it did, and it's gone.
I've been saying this for you. I mean, I back everything up. I am constantly backing things up because I've got a bit of a hoarding problem, but I also don't want to, lose, 15 years of work just for this show. Now, for the Yak and Jack show stuff before 2009, I have a hard drive that stuff purportedly exists on, but it's because my father is he likes his technology to be no younger than 20 years old.
Yeah.
Boy, did that sound weird when I said it just now, but it's on an old now they have SATA hard drives, or that is now everything's solid state, but then before that it was just, I believe it's just ATA, and I need special adapters and cables to hook up that hard drive.
Yep.
So I don't know if I'll be able to easily get into that. Fro might be able to help me out. I don't know. Fro driving around with a vehicle just full of random cables and adapters.
I just imagine Fro just going, I got something, and then just diving like Looney Tunes into the back seat of his car, and then you just hearing rummaging noises.
Yeah,
and then and like just like bonk bonk, like a cat, like meow, and then just he just comes out like, here you go.
He's
is the cat okay? How long has it been down there?
He's Scrooge McDuck jumping into the pool of money, of gold. He's just swimming in it. But anyway, let's go chronologically here, and we'll go to September 2nd, 2009. And during this episode, Zach Ward called in. Now I say called in because we were live streaming the show, but we also had Skype, and we were able to pull up, have that pulled up and take phone calls during the show. We had a number and everything.
I'm remembering this now.
It was the future.
So here's what we talked about in the September 2nd, 2009 installment of this podcast, 15-ish years ago. We had a new show intro. What a coincidence. We had a new intro for tonight's episode. Kate, my ex-wife, appeared on this website. Fortune! Again.
For good things?
I distinctly, because she did modeling at one point, okay?
All right.
And I distinctly recall someone hearing our show, hating us. So they took Kate's modeling photos and put them on 4chan, and then put up like the number for the show. They put up our website, trying to basically dox us, and it backfired because people tuned in. First they were like, "This chick's hot. There's no way she's on this show," and then they tuned in like, "Wow, this chick sounds hot. I like this show." So we got listeners out of it. Yeah.
What were they expecting? That's great.
What else did we talk about in this episode? Sex prayer. I don't know what that is. The boy who cries blood and the girl who cries glass. I don't know what that is. The world.
Oh, the girl who cries glass. That sounds vaguely familiar.
The girl who took shards of glass out of her eyes. Like,
no, it's like some kind of like condition where like her tears form into like crystals or something.
Oh yes.
Oh, is that
I don't know why you said that, and like that like made him. That's why I love ADHD, because like sometimes someone will say something, or like I'll hear like a little sound like the end of like a thing like and it'll just like I'll remember like something really specific from like 20 years ago. I don't know. I don't get it. I love it.
I remember seeing that. It scarred me because it was like they were pulling him, like it was anyway, go on. They're pulling glass out of her eye.
Yeah, well, I've looked up woman who cries glass, and there's stories from 2019. A woman from Armenia, apparently, who was weeping up to 50 jagged-edged tears each day.
Yeah, see, we had green screen technology back then, so it's not legitimate. Back in 2009, Jesus Christ. That's a we didn't have numbering systems apparently.
Yeah, numbers didn't exist back then.
Yeah, what is number?
We didn't have any sort of special effects that we could use.
Nope. It's funny, like digital audio editing existed back then, though. You'd think that, how we're talking about this, I was, editing episodes of this podcast on reel to reel.
Right.
The old Steve Albini style. Okay. What else did we talk about? World's biggest zit popped.
Yep.
Zach calls in. I'm going to be politically correct and not refer to Zach's old nickname. And then, Fro would do this. There's that song. Oh, what the hell's it called? Adagio for Strings. And it's like the instrumental music that plays in like every great war film. And I would play that while Fro would like recite this really long, intricate tale about whatever, meal he had just consumed.
Oh yes, I do vaguely remember
that
this as well.
We did that like 3 or 4 times because people thought it was funny, and then Fro's like, "I've ran out of creative juice," and I'm like, "That's fine. I don't want to keep doing this bit."
I also remember being present with. I don't know if I was actually there, but I feel like I might have been during the Zit Pop because I remember you always wanted to show like gross videos to us. And I was like, I never watched. You might have done 2 Girls in a Cup. And I was just like, nope, still haven't seen that.
We did 2 Girls, 1 Cup. We did 3 Girls, 1 Finger. We did 1 Guy, 1 Jar. We did, I think we did the BME Pain Olympics. Oh, but we didn't.
It's bad that BME Pain Olympics is like nothing. Just don't look up one guy, 1 jar. Just don't do that. Just don't.
If you've been listening since 2009, you'll know that for several years I played audio from that video in jest.
Yes, you did.
The only thing I think we never played were like snuff videos, because I'm like that's where I draw my line.
Yeah, I don't think I'd put my name to anything I would be probably not here if you did that.
Yeah. Anyway, here is audio from September 2nd, 2009. It's when Zach called in to the podcast, which at the time was known as Talk Radio Meltdown. Here we go.
This is actually my first time listening in to you guys.
Oh, sweet, dude. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, dude. That shouldn't have played. We actually just watched this video. You gotta see if you can find it. This guy who had a big cyst on his.
Yeah, I heard, and the noises that everybody was making was enough to make me not want to watch it.
Now, are you talking about the noises that we were making, or the noises that they were making in the video?
Huh?
The noises that we were making, or the noises you heard in the video?
Both of them.
Both, yeah, because Kate was.
Oh, shut up.
Kate was losing it. Kate wasn't taking it too well.
Yeah, I felt like I was just gonna start throwing up just by listening to it.
It was pretty gross just watching all this pus just cascading out of his back.
There was a time where I would just look for snake bite videos and just gross myself out. I have no idea why I decided to do that, but those are some gruesome things too.
See, I could watch 2 Girls, 1 Cup just fine. I could watch the guy shoving the glass jar up his ass just fine. But that, I don't know what that was. It wasn't.
When you're actually seeing fluids that you don't normally see come out of the human body, coming out of just the random opening.
Mm-hmm.
It's not very. You just can't.
It's disgusting.
It just makes you speechless.
Here we are. I don't know if you could tell the difference between 2009 and 2024.
Yeah.
Because hey everybody, it's Jack. How you doing?
That's what I used to sound like.
I legit sounded like you ever had a dream you did it?
Yeah.
Have you ever had a dream that you him to do you so much you could do anything?
I feel like I sounded that way too. I feel like I stuttered and stammered a lot, and then would just repeat what people would say, which is a Hillman thing. And I would like to think I've trained myself not to do that, but Zach would
feel like you're a natural. I was actually kind of waiting for a moment where I was like, am I going to volley? Am I going to say something? Nope, just
stuttering, stammering,
just nothing.
It's so weird too, because like all of us have like our opinions about like the popping of pimples and zits, and then like nowadays, like people watch that. Like it's it's like the Dr. Pimple Popper or whatever. I forget who it's called, but
it's that. But I've
people love it.
I have never watched that.
Freaking love it.
I will say though, as soon as I heard myself talking about like the snake bite videos and like the spider bite videos, like I do vaguely remember doing that and just being like, because it's like I do have that weird hole thing, but like I remember looking up some of those and just being like, okay, I don't think I would ever want to bit by anything that causes necrosis, because I'm just not going to go anywhere for anything that can do that to me, because that is terrifying.
Yeah, I mean,
and the fact that there's like people that like keep venomous like snakes around, and I use the word right, it is venomous.
Because poisonous is you're dead,
you eat it,
whatever.
Or you eat it.
Yeah, that's
poison
what it was.
You eat. Venom you get bit by.
Good job. I'm proud of you. We're learning together.
Venom, like, I could be totally wrong too, but isn't venom typically like comes in a liquid form, right?
Yeah, like I think from my understanding, venom is something that has to be injected into your bloodstream for it to affect you.
Yeah.
And poison is something you have to like eat in order for it to have the effect on you, because it's something you metabolize and then suddenly just goes everywhere in your body.
Shout out Spider-Man 2 on PlayStation 5. Just finished that. Plenty of venom in that game.
No, but like, so the internet like really blossomed at a time when we would be curious about a lot of morbid things.
Yeah.
And so like you had like rotten.com or whatever, and
Ogreish.
all those like all those like, which is I think now what 4chan is. I don't know. I've never been on 4chan, but I remember seeing like snuff stuff online, which by the way, people, if you don't know what snuff films are, you know how they have murder documentaries? Well, these happen immediately. The documentary is happening while the film is happening.
Well,
this is more of a murder movie. Yeah, murder documentary, murder movie, very different.
So there's
like Gabby Petito or whatever her name is, like how like maybe 3 or 4 days after they found her, they released like a Hulu special. Well, this snuff films happen a lot quicker. you're seeing the crime happen right before your eyes.
There's a feature film called 8mm, which is about snuff film bringing in. There's a great video game by Rockstar Games called Manhunt, in which you're playing the unwitting participant in a series of snuff films.
If you really, really like horror movies, then the best example of this would be the Poughkeepsie tapes. Because that is a fucked up horror movie. But it's one of my favorites because it just makes you just feel dead inside.
It is
Poughkeepsie tapes?
Yes. It's basically shot as a documentary. And it's shot as you're watching a documentary on a class that is being taught in college to help people catch serial killers, and it's about a specific one. And they describe it as they make all of the detectives in the class watch the Poughkeepsie tapes, because there's a random house in Poughkeepsie, New York, that they found was abandoned, and they got like an anonymous tip about, and they went in and it was abandoned, and there's like a bunch of bones and stuff, and tons and tons and tons of VHS tapes, and they're just all just the things that this master serial killer did, and they make them watch it to study how to catch a serial killer, because the characters just basically they created the perfect serial killer villain archetype. So it's really messed up, but it's a really good horror movie.
Cool. Like the Blair Witch Project fucking changed horror movies forever.
It really did, and I'm glad what it did. Like I remember being in like first grade and like hearing about the Blair Witch Project, and it had already become a meme before memes were even like a thing that we talked about as like an active concept. But I just remember that, and like I remember that being parodied a lot early on the internet. Like what's one of those things that got parodied a lot. So it's funny how cyclical some of this stuff is, and how it's kind of existed for a while, and when you don't really just notice it. But the same thing with podcasts, like just like we were just talking about that.
And then Blair Witch became a franchise, and we don't talk about any of the successors to the original.
Oh yeah, no, there's successors.
Unfortunately.
Nope.
There are.
Nope.
You know what, Nate? Why don't you go
together too? Everybody thought the Blair Witch Project was a snuff film.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah.
Go full circle. Anyway, sorry.
Nate, why don't you go face the corner?
Okay.
Okay. So it's funny too, like going back and listening to the audio and just like the stuff that we were talking about that was topical in the news, and those two episodes there were a lot of Michael Jackson references because that was a thing that had just happened. He had just died, so that was still the big news of the time. And then we were talking about, I think it was, I'm going to say it was the next clip I'm about to play, but I had mentioned that I had just seen Blink-182 with Kate, and that was the show right after DJ AM died. And we were talking about that then, but it was like, it was news. It was big news. Yeah. And it's something we still talk about to this day, but it's just so crazy going back and listening to those episodes and just hearing things that were big and relevant at the time and that we were all over it. We were kids, man.
DJ AM died in 2009?
Yes. It was September 2009. It was right after Blink had reunited. And I remember seeing them the day after that happened, and they should have canceled that show. They didn't. They played that show.
I remember you talking about it.
Yeah, but then they canceled like the next like half dozen shows afterwards.
They were like crying during
Down. Yeah, oh my God, that was oof.
Yeah, I remember
that was
you telling me
depressing.
that.
Anyway, here is audio from September 9th or September 8th. September 8th, 2009. And this features, there's a lot of fro in this. Mike Terrara, I think this might have been like his second appearance on the show.
I remember that guy.
And Nate was here as well.
Oh boy. Let's hear that octave.
Oh, and this is the audio quality, man. This is what I love listening to, is the audio quality. All right, here we go.
My friends Nate Fillers from the Yak and Jack Show is here.
This is my voice, everyone.
And Mike, my friend Mike Terrara.
This is me. I'll be eating a sandwich for the first half hour, gorging myself.
Mike is the funny one. Anything that is said tonight that might make you laugh will come from Mike and not from any of us.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Especially not from Jack.
Yeah.
Who sucks.
I've given up on trying to be funny on this show. I tried once and it was miserable. Mike's sandwich is making a comment right now. What's our demographic? Just stupid women and all 14 of their kids?
Yes.
Are you saying we can't?
They're talking about us on the radio.
Bobby Lee, come here.
That's going to be me, guys. I'm going to come back and be like, what's up, y'all?
Yeah, you are legitimately moving to backwoods redneck country.
Yep. Yeah.
I asked you that the other night because Nate is moving to Georgia, and I asked him.
Where in Georgia?
Nice.
Where are you moving?
Savannah.
Ooh.
Savannah's actually pretty nice.
That's hardly
It actually has one really kick-ass
south.
St. Patrick's Day festival.
Yeah.
It really
Which
does.
is odd, because you're like, Savannah, Georgia, they don't even believe in saints. But no, they do. It's like the third of...
Irish. It's not about believing in saints. It's about believing in heavy drinking.
Oh, absolutely. They actually do. The Savannah River, they actually do the thing like Chicago does. They dye the river.
That's amazing.
We just,
dye the Boston streets in multicolored puke.
I have something on my mind that I'm very bad at taking the mic away from Mike. Sorry,
just a great pause right there. I have to use the same word twice in a row. Shit, that's gonna sound weird.
Yeah, but I like the fact that you can have a split personality with like your own self. It's like, hi, I'm Nate. I'm also Nate.
Yeah,
this is Nate too.
Yeah,
I'm back. Hi guys.
Yeah, you ever notice that?
I'm back too.
People split personality. And it's always a different name. It's always a completely different person. But what if it was the same person, or not the same person, but the same name?
No,
that would just be confusing.
Would be good too.
All I know is when if I ever develop some sort of personality disorder and I get a split personality, I am really hoping that my split personality is Professor Farnsworth.
What the hell was I talking about?
I love how everybody is just like hi, and just talking over everyone.
Everyone's yelling over each other.
Yeah.
This is a free sound.
Yeah, thank God we don't do that anymore.
So if it wasn't obvious from that clip, because I had state-of-the-art recording equipment back then, Nate and Mike were sharing a microphone. So anytime like Nate wanted to say something, he'd have to rip it out of Mike's hands. And then Mike was then yelling so he could be picked up.
Yeah, I remember though. Those were dark times.
Oh, what a time.
Because the funny thing is I grabbed them, as you heard, I grabbed the microphone from him and had nothing to say.
It sounds, Nate, in all honesty, it sounds no different from any current installment of this podcast.
Yeah, pretty much. I've always been weird and I've stayed true to that.
Now, what I thought was cool is now you moved to Georgia to go to school. And then I figured, oh, well, you're going to be there forever. And then several years later, we do the 200th episode, which was it was a big live event. We packed a bar. I was massive. I couldn't believe so many people gave a shit about the show and showed up just to watch us do our thing. I wish I'd put more planning into it, but I remember we're in the middle of something, and then in walks Nate, and it was such a surprise. I think that was like the highlight of the night was seeing Nate. One of the highlights of the night, I will say, is seeing Nate walk in.
Oh well yeah. I was like, oh, that's so sweet. Oh, well, getting less sweet. Now, all right, fuck you. I'm just joking. Yeah, because I had just gotten back from Savannah, and it was just like, but the funny thing is you literally thought that I flew in from Georgia just for the show, but I was home for break.
Why'd you tell me that? I thought I was special.
Well, because you made me think I was special, and then you're like, one of the good parts of it.
Okay.
Fair. I'm just joking.
Fair.
It was a big reason to come home early, is because you had a show. I could have stayed there a couple more days or weeks, but yes.
Well, I don't mean to say like I don't mean to discount my excitement and if this is a word, gratefulness to see Nate walk into the bar while we were doing the show. But a comedian named Will Noonan, who friend of the show, follows us on Threads at Hardly Focused, was apparently on that show. He was apparently in that episode.
Was he?
We did a big stand-up thing at the end of the night. And
I remember that.
We had a bunch of comedians on, and a young Will Noonan was there.
Oh wow, he's big now.
He is big, and he was on the show. And I completely forgotten about that until someone told me that years later. And so.
All I can remember is that guy that was like, I'm getting a cookie sponsorship.
I don't remember that.
He was like a bigger guy, and he got like an email from like a cookie company that was like, but he thought he was getting a cookie sponsorship, which is really funny.
Was he the guy that looked like Hurley from Lost?
Yeah.
Okay. I remember that, because then I remember going outside later that night, and him, I'm going to guess Noonan was in the car with him. There were a bunch of people piled into a clown car just smoking weed and asked if I wanted to toke up with them.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'd love to, but you see, I've had a lot of drinks. And I'm having trouble standing.
That was a good night.
So, well, there you go. Audio from
and clearly I got
15
the accent.
years ago.
The Georgia accent that I was afraid of.
Yes, you got the accent.
You can hear that. You can hear me. My constant use of y'all.
Y'all. I say y'all. I'm not from the West or the South. And I say y'all.
But that was the thing I was afraid of. I was afraid of that.
Something else relevant at the time. Something else was relevant at the time. So I bought, the headphone manufacturer Skull Candy.
Oh my God, I forgot about them.
Well, I forget no longer because I'm using Skull Candy earbuds right now. And
oh, really? They're still, or did you find them?
I was at Ross Dress for Less down in Florida, and they had Ross, much like TJ Maxx, Marshalls.
Oh yes, Ross. I heard much things about the Ross.
Ross, you know what I found at Ross, and credit to Becky for helping me find them in my size? Jurassic Park Reeboks.
What the fuck?
Oh yes, I found them there. Ross.
Dude, we need one of those up here.
Yeah, the Ross everywhere but New England.
Well,
that's cool.
Sure, there's a reason for it.
Oh, those shoes are $30, by the way. Yeah,
we hate Jurassic Park up here,
dude. It's
Massachusetts.
All right, it's a madhouse. Ross as a store, it's always a madhouse, no matter what time of day it is. And then, at least the one I was in when I was buying the shoes. So, they have those like security tag things on the shoes, and if you remove them, it starts going off. It's a big thing. Well, these things are super sensitive, and they're like, people are just looking at them and they're going off. So you just, after being in the store for a few minutes, you just get used to the sound of these things chirping. Well, I'm walking around with my shoes and I can hear these things going off, and I just tuned them out. I go to stand in line, and I'm just waiting there in line, and you can still hear the alarms and everything, and people are talking about it, and I'm paying no mind to it. And then finally someone who works at the store comes up to me and says, "Hey, can I see the shoes?" And I'm like, okay. And they're like, "I'm going to just turn this alarm off." I had been walking around the store for like 20, 30 minutes with the alarm going off, like in my hand. And I'm like, I didn't even know it was me.
It's just like, who's that asshole?
It's like
that was me. And I realized
the car alarm goes off.
Yeah, I was around all these people who were effectively talking shit about me. And I didn't realize it because I'm just so many of these alarms are going off. I didn't even think about it. But yeah, I was that jerk. And the second lady takes the shoes, she takes the alarm off. The thing just shuts off. Silence. And I'm just like, well, if you need me, I'm going to go step out in the parking lot and hope a car hits me.
Everybody cheers.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
But you're a hero.
Anyway, Ross Dress for Less is where I got my Skull Candy earbuds. They do still exist, and I bring that up because I was getting nostalgic. I was posting on Threads just old photos that were taken while we were recording various episodes of the show. We would do this. We would do these photo shoots pretty frequently between 2009 and 2011. And when Nate, you were in that episode, that clip I just played, you can hear the camera being rewound in the background as the the photos are being taken. But I noticed
first camera ever.
Well, I noticed in a bunch of those photos, your boy was wearing Skull Candies.
Yeah, they were really big in 2008, 2009.
Yeah,
because I worked at Circuit City, and everyone was like, "Do you have the Skull Candies?" They were like the bows, the affordable bows.
Yeah, they're still around. Skull Candy still makes.
That's crazy.
They make Bose quality headphones. They do wireless earbuds. And I found out the wired earbuds, like what I'm wearing right now, they're called Jib. That's the model name. They call them Jib.
No, I don't like that.
No, it's great.
No.
It's perfect. It's beautiful.
It's bad. It hurts.
Hey, son, I like the cut of your jib.
No, I hate the prevalence of earbuds, because I don't know. I can't deal with things in my ear. I don't know what it is. I try to get used to it, but I just can't. I miss those headphones that were like the little had the little grabby arms that just like hugged onto your ear.
Yeah.
And they're just like, those are great. I wish you could still get those, but like you can't really get those headphones anymore. But those were my favorite.
Yeah.
Those are the best.
I think it was like you didn't like it pushing the earwax into your eardrum.
Yeah.
And it was just like, ugh.
That's the thing about like the Skull Candy's taking them off, and they've got like the black silicone buds, and then just the amount of gunk that is accumulated on there.
You know, they do make cleaning kits for those things that you supposed to buy so you can clean the stuff out, because you're not supposed to just keep the earwax in it.
I saw that like literally for the first time tonight. I was CVS and I saw that, and I'm just thinking to myself, why don't you just get some Q-tips? Wouldn't Q-tips and rubbing alcohol do the same exact thing?
I mean, like they make like the Q-tips that have like the spiral things and you just like twist it out. But I've grown up with good old hydrogen peroxide and Q-tips. You put it in your ear and you hear bubbles and you're like, oh, it's so soothing, because first of all, it itches like hell. But when you get that Q-tip in, have you ever rubbed a dog's ears and they were like,
Oh yeah,
I get it. Because when you put peroxide in your ear, it gets so itchy. But then when you get to get that stuff out, it's like.
I'm having a hardly focused moment here. So, there's that Sears commercial with the air conditioner.
Yes.
So I have that on a shirt. And it's the guy.
Commercial?
I have that. Yeah, it's the entire commercial. It just plays on my shirt. No, it's a still image of the man, and I'm blanking on his name, but I follow him on Instagram, and it's a picture of him, and it just says underneath, "I'll call now."
I'll call now.
Well, what a comical shirt, you might say. So I go to Riot Fest a few years ago in Chicago, and I'm just like, I wore that shirt because I figured, this will get some laughs. People will point at it and be like, I remember that shirt. Well, I'm walking around, and all of a sudden, like, some dude just yells and comes running over to me. And there's a guy who's wearing the same exact shirt. So he has his friends take photos, and I'm like, oh, this is great. You're awesome. Whatever. And like, we go our separate ways. So then my phone was used to take one of those photos. So I put it on Instagram, and this is back when my Instagram was public. Well, one day, like a week later, someone tags that guy in the photo like that. For some reason, that photo started showing up in the search algorithm. So people start liking it, and like my phone's blowing up with notifications all day. And it crossed the desk of the guy that I took the photo with, or a friend of his.
So awesome. They
tagged him, and they're like, "Is that Brett Orweth?" And he's like, "It is." And I'm like, "Oh my God, my shirt brother, I've found you." And we have kept in touch ever since. He's in, and I bring this up because he's in a band called This Is Falling, and the day that this episode premieres, this episode of Hardly Focused, the show 911, which was moved from Fox to ABC. And this confuses me because then they have a spinoff called 911 Lone Star, and that stayed on Fox. But then the mothership show went to a different network. That usually doesn't happen. Imagine if
Fox is weird.
Imagine if like Law and Order went to CBS, but SVU stayed on NBC.
But nothing Fox does is real. So
sure, yeah. Anyway, Brett's band, This Is Falling, will be featured in the next episode of the show 911.
So, that's cool.
Nice.
I
want to give
congrats.
Congrats to Brett. I want to give him a shout out. His band doing very well. This Is Falling band on Instagram.
That's crazy how everything's connected.
Yeah.
It's a small world, dude. It really is a small world.
It sure is.
Like I'm sure I've told this story here on the show, but I was in Los Angeles upwards of a decade ago now, probably. And I'm at the Wiltern, which is a very well-known, very famous concert venue. And I'm seeing a band called STS9. And I just happen to be standing next to some dude. Reminder, I'm in Los Angeles. And I'm standing next to some dude who turns out is a cook, or at the time was a cook, at the restaurant I live next door to in my apartment in Hudson, Massachusetts.
Oh, wow.
And we recognized each other. And I'm like,
yeah,
because I go in the restaurant all the time. He's a cook. We see each other, and I'm like, we're literally on the other side of the country, and you're here. Are you kidding me with this?
I love stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Zach, what's the weirdest coincidence for you? Do you know?
For the show?
No, just like in life. Like, what was like the most like small world moment for you? Put me on the spot.
I don't know if this is like the most small world moment, but like, so one of my ex-partners lived in a completely random place in Vermont, Bennington, Vermont, particularly. And the supervisor that I have right now happens to be one of their childhood friends, and we're like it's just weird because I just realized like I was like, wait a minute, you live in Vermont, what's your name? I know I've heard your name before, and then I realized, oh wow, you're my supervisor. That's really cool.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm sure I've had other things like that. But I'm trying to think. Oh, the only other really cool thing is that I have two friends that are very close with the people that own the company that makes all of RuPaul's Drag Race's like scepters and crowns.
Oh wow,
so that's cool. Really fucking cool.
That is really cool. That is awesome. Well, I mean, think of like the small world stuff. I mean, think of how many like famous people went to our Podunk High School. You know, like
oh yeah, you know that is interesting. It's completely random the amount of people that have come out of just our town completely randomly.
Yeah, I mean, one of Spagnola, Steve Spagnola, and he just won the Super Bowl with the Chiefs.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, he's one of the. I think he's like defensive coordinator. He's someone on the Chiefs, and now it could be. He went to our high school. I could be totally wrong about like where he's where he is now.
In the football field.
I know, like
defensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs.
That's
I know, like there was another one, Obi Melifonu. He was came out of our school.
Yep, he played on the
like someone.
He played on the Patriots for.
And it wasn't like at some point there was like somebody who was like a coach or something for like I think the year the Saints won. That was a while ago. I can't remember now.
Do you know Melifonu's brother is also a football player and he's on the Lions?
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's great. If you look up, I think his name's pronounced Ifeatu Melifonu, and you look up current team, Detroit Lions, number 6 safety, education, Grafton Middle School. Siblings, Obi Melifonu, who. Yeah.
You know what's interesting to me is like hearing all of this now. I'm just like it kind of makes sense why the theater program got like so heavily defunded and then like turned to basically nothing. I don't even know if they do anything anymore.
Yeah, I had a nightmare about. I had a nightmare about.
Did you not know that, Nate?
No, I didn't. This is the first time hearing about it.
No, yeah, like our original director hasn't done that for a long time. It was like actually a big thing because like I forget exactly the details of it, but basically it made it so that like the music director decided not to do anything anymore because the director was just like I think arbitrarily replaced or something like that. If I recall correctly, it was a while ago. So I don't even know if they do theater shows in our hometown like that anymore.
That would be that would be really bizarre if they didn't. But at the same time, our principal who just recently retired, like in the last couple of years, he I mean, he was a theater guy. So I would think theater would probably be like one of the last things he.
No. He cared way more about the sports. What are you talking about?
Well, I mean, look.
But he was a theater guy. He was in Guys and Dolls.
Yep. It is funny too when I'm looking at like both Melifonu's education. It makes it sound like they dropped out of middle school.
Yeah.
It doesn't mention our high school at all.
That's actually really funny.
But it's not just so it's not just the athletes. There was a guy Mark Orell. He was in Dropkick Murphys.
How are we forgetting Julie Mallow?
Julie Mallow, who designed stuff for Katy Perry.
That was like that was a big fucking deal.
Yeah. Paris Hilton.
That like happened literally right in front of us.
Yeah, well,
yeah, Katy Perry's famous watermelon dress was Julie's.
Yeah, dude, Julie was in my art class. She was always making like cool stuff.
I love Julie. So I love Julie. She was such a sweetheart.
Me too. I still
is a sweetheart. She's not
still
dead.
chat with her. So
good. Ricky Duran.
Oh yes, Ricky
runner
Duran.
up on The Voice.
Still doing a bunch of things.
Lauren Brown, runner up on as the model on I think it was season 2 of Project Runway.
Really? Didn't know that.
And she had a big, if you went into New York, I remember seeing this in 2013. You go into New York, the casino in Las Vegas, and there she was, just like floor to ceiling, a big like print of her.
She's fucking beautiful. So
yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then obviously us, world famous, coming out of that high school.
Well,
yeah, it is.
All right. Let's do this. Yeah,
I've done some stuff.
You have. I count you as this. I count you in this circle.
No, but for like
you have done
real,
stuff.
Like it's just kind of weird though. Like Rick, like we all knew Ricky though. Like we all knew Ricky was pushing that. It was like we're like this world doesn't exist if he doesn't make a name for himself because he is so fucking talented. Like all the people you mentioned, of course, were talented. And there's also somebody you're forgetting. I don't know what her name is, but it was in one of your grades, the porn star.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Was her name Valerie? That's her stage name?
I don't know. I just remember being at my cousin's apartment one day and then a bunch of dudes coming in being like, you remember Chibba Dibba from our class? I found her in a porn. And he like pulls up the video and I was like, oh, I wasn't in my grade, so
yeah, look up I mean she's a star, Valerie White. Look her up on the old internet there, because we went to high school with her.
Small world.
Got a small something. Okay.
I see what you did.
Yeah, I'm talking about myself, you see. High school. And here we are in our 30s. Pushing 40.
Doing great.
And
yeah, dude, I'm like what? 3 years away from 40?
Yeah.
Ew.
I'm 5 years. So. Oh, and then for Ricky, if you're listening, Mr. Goodman, please come to the office.
Yeah.
Too soon.
Oh man,
I want to have Ricky on the show.
I was not there for that, but holy shit.
Ricky will never come on this show, but if he ever did, I'd be like, dude, we got to tell the Mr. Goodman story. We have to, because that's like, that's one of those.
I remember where I was when that happened.
I was locked in the auditorium. I remember. I mean, there's I guess worse places you could be, but yeah, that was a good thing.
Was that one? What that was?
2006.
Oh.
It was 2006.
Oh,
wait, 2006. You had already graduated, Nate.
Oh, okay. So it was the next year.
Correct.
Like
it was
September. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Because I was in.
I remember hearing like Ricky walked into school with a guitar case, and everybody freaked out because they thought it was not a guitar case. They thought it was.
Yeah. The short version of it is, Ricky showed up to school late. Snuck in through the back entrance, went by the gym in the auditorium, was trying not to get caught. He had his guitar in its case slung over his shoulder. Someone saw it, thought it was a rifle, reported it to the office, and then we had to go into lockdown. And the lockdown trigger was the principal going over the intercom and saying, "Mr. Goodman, please come to the office," because they figured that was an inconspicuous way of saying, "Lock the doors and turn off the lights."
Yeah, which If you just break into a school with a gun and then you hear a message on the intercom being like so and so, you can just assume
yeah, it's about you.
That's about you. You're kind of a big deal.
Right. Oh, if things in the public school system were only so simple these days.
Which was crazy to think about, like somebody would do that, because back then, well, still like the police department was like literally right next to the school.
And do you remember that our school resource officer was the fattest police officer?
Yes, I remember him. Yep, I remember him.
He lost a ton of weight. Like, I'll give him credit for that. But like when at least we were in high school, that man was.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, when you need to use a golf cart to get around because walking is a physical challenge. I'm glad the man cut down.